Yeah. Yeah. I hope you saw our last video. Job's 42 chapters are the tribulation, Jacob's trouble, 42 months. Of course, Job is in the word Jacob. And that time of great tribulation in Jeremiah 37 is called Jacob's trouble. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And today we're going to see that Jacob's trouble in the book of Revelation began in Jacob's tent, all the way back in the book of Genesis. It all began here with a calling, the calling of God. God supplying Jacob his building materials. We read this, Genesis 28. And he, Jacob, lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. And he took the stones of that place, anything in red we're going to be focusing on, and put them for his pillows and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillows and set it up for a pillar, poured oil upon the top of it, and he called the name of that place Bethel. Bethel means the house of God. Jacob vowed a vow, saying, and this stone, which I have set for a pillar, shall be God's house. These were the building materials for the house of God, consigned to Jacob. Of course, John 1:51, we see who had to take over the building of the house of God, where Jesus identifies himself as Jacob's ladder. We're going to see that Jacob veered from close attention in detail to his building project. And it started here with the love of his life, Rachel, where we see God's building and Satan's building side by side. God returned to Jacob. When he did, he re-announced himself as, I am the God of Bethel. Remember, that means house of God, where thou anointedst the pillar, where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. It was time for Jacob to take his wives, his sons and daughters, and his flock and cattle, everything he owned, and make a radical departure to get back to the vision of God. But there was trouble. He sneaks out right here, and Laban went to shear his sheep. Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's, and Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian. Anything you see underlined is going to come back up. So here, in this hasty departure that's made to escape Laban the Syrian, that's Rachel and Leah's father, that's Jacob's wife's father, Rachel steals the family images. Then Laban overtook Jacob. So Laban goes chasing after. And when he catches up, he says, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? Ah, those nasty gods. Jacob answered and said to Laban, this is underlined, pay attention, with whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. That's going to come up. And Laban went into Leah's tent. Then went he out of Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. He's searching for those images, those gods. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture. Note that. And sat upon them. And Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. And she said to her father, let it not displease my lord, that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images. Now, I think we all know what the custom of women is. Once a month, it is their cycle. So we have, according to Leviticus, an unclean woman sitting on a beast full of abominations. I hope that's starting to sound familiar. It's starting to show you the coming of Jacob's trouble. Now let's look at what's running side by side, because nothing less than God's building materials for the house of God and Satan's building materials for Satan's world system. On the left, God's building materials, the stones, which pictures the church, the many stones, and the stone singular, which is the chief cornerstone, Jesus Christ. And these for Bethel, the house of God, that is the built up church. Upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Matthew 16:18. Thus saith the Lord. But side by side, in Jacob's very own tent, is concurrently Satan's building materials. What a mixed picture we have. We saw the images. Compare that with Revelation 14:9. If any man worship the beast or his image, the gods, the idols. Look at what Antichrist is boasting in 2 Thessalonians 2:4. He sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And then there was the camel's furniture. Camel, that's a beast. Rachel was sitting upon that camel's furniture. I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy. Revelation 17:3. Scarlet-colored beast. Think about it. The custom of women was upon Rachel, supposedly. And what color would she be identifying with that would be seeping from her upon and onto the beast? It would be surely the color of scarlet, red. Think about that. Now, next we had the custom of women, speaking of, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color. See, this is identifying her as the unclean woman who Rachel was purporting herself out to be. Decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. We're going to see this golden cup come up soon, so stand by for that. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Revelation 17:4 and 5. This is who Rachel was picturing when she was sitting upon the beast furniture with the images under her as she poured out scarlet. Her being scarlet and the beast being scarlet. One with Satan's one world satanic order system. Truly, Jacob's trouble in Revelation began in Jacob's tent in Genesis. And it looks like this. From seed to growth to harvest, Jacob's trouble began in his tent as a seed in Genesis, right here. And it devoured his house as a harvest in Revelation, right here. And here is the golden cup. Let's see where this cup comes from. Oh, no surprise. It's part of Jacob's trouble. So it must be in Jacob's house. And surely it is. Before we get to it, though, Take a look at what's written on her forehead. This woman who rides the beast. Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Well, from left to right, it says Laban's. And from right to left, it says images. Do you see that? In the King James Bible, where every letter is spoken out of the mouth of God. Laban, Rachel's father, his images that she was sitting on in Genesis, truly, truly, I say unto you, had become the woman riding the beast in Revelation. Now, remember we saw underlined Laban the Syrian. That was in Genesis 31:20. This means that he was a Gentile, and Gentiles read from left to right, Laban's. But the Jews, they read from right to left, images, because that time of great tribulation, Jacob's trouble, is going to be trouble, hell on earth. 42 months, just like Job's 42 chapters for both the Gentile and the Jew. Alas, we get to the golden cup. Meet Joseph, Rachel's son. The house of Jacob yet. Jacob's trouble growing in Jacob's tent. Now, here's an episode out of the life of Joseph. Remember, his brothers, by their treachery, ruined his life, sending him to Egypt. But God redeemed it and made him prince of Egypt. When they were in a stave, that is a starvation, they came to Egypt for food, and they were face to face, reunited, unbeknownst to them, to their brother. And now he would have treachery upon them. Let's pick it up here. And he, it's Joseph, commanded the steward of his house, those were Egyptians, saying, fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack's mouth. That was the 12 brothers of Joseph, who were going away with more than they bargained for. And put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, they and their asses. So here we have a mysterious cup, just like this mysterious cup. And it was upon a beast, and it was planted in the belongings of the 12 tribes of Jacob. This would become a cup of trembling. And when they were gone out of the city, and not yet far off, Joseph said unto his steward, overtake them, say unto them, wherefore have ye rewarded evil for good? Is not this it in which my Lord drinketh, and whereby indeed he divineth? Ye have done evil in so doing. Now this silver cup that was planted was a divining cup. This means it was a cup of abominations to the Lord, just like this cup that grew into the hand of the woman who rides the beast. Cup full of abominations and filth. Now we start to see the same things happen that happened when Jacob stole away from Laban, his father-in-law. And he overtook them. Remember reading that? And he spake unto them these same words, and they said unto him, wherefore saith my Lord these words? God forbid that thy servants should do according to this thing. With whomsoever of thy servant it be found, both let him die. Judah speaks these words, and they're the exact same words that Jacob spoke. Jacob, not knowing that Rachel had stolen the items of Laban, his images and gods. And now, Judah, not knowing that they were holding the cup of sorcery upon their beast in their midst, was saying the exact same words. You see, this story and the story of what Rachel had done, exact same story. After all, Joseph was Rachel's son. Then they speedily took down every man his sack to the ground, opened every man his sack, and he searched, and began at the eldest and left at the youngest. Now that was exactly the order that Laban searched the tents Remember, Laban went to Leah's tent first. She was the oldest. And then Rachel's tent last. She was the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. This is Joseph's express brother through his mother, Rachel. And Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house. And when they did, what we see is the rest of prophecy unfolding of the ultimate saving of Israel, that is, the house of Jacob, when they look upon him whom they have pierced, and they mourn after him as an only son. And Joseph said unto them, What deed is this that ye have done? Wot ye not that such a man as I can certainly divine? And Judah said, What shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? You see, this is a picture of Israel's final repentance when they turn to Jesus. And at that time, what's left of them out of Jacob's trouble, all Israel shall be saved. God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants. There it is right there, turning themselves in to Jesus. Joseph being a type of Jesus Christ. Both we and he also with whom the cup is found. So now we have all of Satan's building materials for his last days effort to destroy the house of God. From love, Rachel, to a woman rides the beast, like mother, like son in Joseph, his contribution from a silver divining cup in Genesis to a golden cup of trembling in Revelation. After all, this silver cup is showing its growth because, remember, on the elemental chart, silver is beneath gold. In Revelation, that which was silver in Genesis had become gold. Such growth. Now I ask you, the church would never harbor Satan's building materials as they build the house of God, Bethel, right? Would they? Well, if you're a viewer of our channel, you know that we are here to hold the church accountable to the building materials of God. Let's take a look at the church today, because God's building materials for the house of God, no surprise, are running side by side with the intruder, Satan's building materials for Satan's world system. Because remember, there has to be a spiritual component to that one world order. And these false Bibles are paving the way. God's building materials for the house of God is expressly and chiefly the 1611 King James Bible, founded upon a rock, Matthew 7:25. Jesus said that if we are not building upon his sayings, and that is today the King James Bible, then we are not wise builders building upon a rock. But if we do, such we are. And if we do, we will be taking the only cup of trembling we need to take. And it's in Philippians 2:12, where it says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. I see no fear and trembling regarding the Holy Bible in the church today. And this is why, even attempting to speak to Christians about the Holy Bible, the 1611 King James Bible, it is scoffed at. Now let's go over here and look at, unfortunately, what is running side by side. And it's all of these and more, from the ESV to the New King James Bible, Amplified Bible, and many, many, etc., etceteras. Oh, how true Ecclesiastes 12:12 is, where it is written further, by these, my son, be admonished, of making many books. There is no end. Much study is a weariness of the flesh. These Bibles are a weariness of the flesh. They do not produce the building of God. And this is why we see a weary church today, wearied in the flesh, because these Bibles do not source from God. They are not honored by God. They are not the supply of the building material for the house of God. Now take a look at this. As we look at Satan's building materials side by side with God's building materials in Jacob's house, because Paul told us that we're to look at Jacob's house to avoid such catastrophes as this. 1 Corinthians 10:6, now these things were our examples to the intent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. And here, right here, is the epitome of their demise. And it's Psalm 107:11. Read this: because they rebelled against the words of God and contemned the counsel of the Most High. Count every word in Psalm 107:11. It's 16 words in verse 11. That's 16:11. As we look back at Israel's misguided fortune, and we see that the reason for their misguided fortune is right here, that they rebelled against the words of God and contemned the counsel of the Most High. We can see by the finished Bible that that which was history giving us advice is also pointing us to the contemporary day of today and future word, that this express words of God and counsel of the Most High is nothing other than the 1611 King James Bible. And that takes us right back to here. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Satan has been building side by side from the start. Do you really think that in the time, the mystery dispensation of the grace of the church, he has not smuggled in his building materials? Jacob's trouble began in Jacob's tent. Yes, Satan has been smuggling his building materials in the tent of God's people from the start. And I ask you, are they in your tent too? See my video right here. Whoredom in the church, hid in Numbers 25. This will explore in the book of Numbers how God prophesied that there would be the smuggle of Satan into the tent of the church. Watch it in close detail, pay close attention, and learn from it. I hope that you've enjoyed seeing what only the perfect Word of God can show you, the King James Bible. God bless you all.